Okay, so I hope this video does not get immediately pushed out of date too quickly, because if there is a contract signed between the time I'm recording this audio to the time I press public on YouTube, or even if there's a contract signed minutes after this video goes live on the internet, then okay, I look like a fool, I'll take the L on that. But at the end of the day, this is a weird situation that I didn't really think we would be talking about in this way. Today, we are heading over to the Buffalo Sabres and talking about the best defenseman on the team, Rasmus Dahlin. Dahlin is a very good player, and I think his reputation amongst NHL fans and media has risen to the point of potentially being near the apex of defensive talent in this generation's worth of play. He's 23 years old, 6'3", 207, left-handed guy. As we all know, he was the first overall guy back in 2018, and the reason he is in the news is because he's signed to a $6 million AAV contract, which expires at the end of 23-24. Dahlin, at the time of recording this audio, has no extension in place. And for a guy who last season had 73 points in 78 games played, you could very well debate that whatever number Dahlin asks for, he's probably worth it, and it's probably fair. Like, even if he goes out there and asks for number one defenseman in the NHL type of money, hey, you give it to the guy. He's a point-per-game player, he's only 23, he's going to get better. Dahlin was touted as a franchise defenseman ever since he was drafted first overall in 2018. So, the way he has progressed since then has sort of fit that mold spectacularly. However, part of the reason why Dahlin is in such a weird spot is because a few weeks ago we had ourselves this idea floating around saying that Dahlin was going to sign a huge extension with Buffalo, and that we actually had numbers attached to that deal too. Take a look at this tweet made. It is published by BNR Open Ice. Rasmus Dahlin's rumored extension in Buffalo is 8 years long with an AAV of $10.5 million. This was initially reported on the After the Whistle podcast. It's got Andrew Peters and Craig Rivet on it. They're ex-NHL players, and of course, I think some of y'all are familiar with the show. But they did this reporting a few weeks ago, and they said, hey, 10.5, that's the reported number. But they also had a conversation as well as to why the Buffalo Sabres had not announced it yet. To their understanding on the podcast, that was the number. That was how it was going to go down. But, as we all know, it's been a few days since then, and we have not gotten any sort of a word that it's confirmed yet. You had other insiders stepping in too. This is what Elliot Friedman went out there and said. He wouldn't run with those $10.5 million AAV numbers on Dahlin, and that there's still a little bit more work to be done there. That tweet was made last week on September 8th, so it's been a while, a few days worth of time since this entire thing went down. But one of the biggest issues as to why this Dahlin thing is important is because around the same time you had another defenseman also receive a big payday. Jake Sanderson, on September 6th, received an 8-year, $8.05 million AAV contract. And after this deal was announced, you had a lot of people saying, wait a minute, okay, if Dahlin's getting 10.5, that's kind of a steal, because Dahlin is better than Sanderson is right now. No disrespect to Sanderson, I'm a very big fan of him, and I think if you had seen the video we made on his contract extension, you know how much I believe in Sanderson. But if Sanderson is at 8.05 right now, with how he is, how he's progressed, he's only played 70-something games, then Dahlin could very justifiably get a lot more than 10.5 million. And the interesting thing is, that actually might be the case here. Maybe not on a long-term deal, maybe on a shorter-term deal as well. Take a look at this post made on Buffalo Hockey Now by Michael Augello from a few days ago. Are Dahlin contract negotiations at an impasse? Here is what the article goes out there and says. Reports last week say that the Buffalo Sabres were on the precipice of getting defenseman Rasmus Dahlin signed to a long-term deal, but there are rumors of a potential snag between the club and their all-star defenseman. Kevin Adams said to The Athletic's Pierre LeBrun and Michael Russo at the NHL GM and coaches meeting in Chicago that the recent 8-year, $64.4 million deal signed by the Ottawa Senators and Jake Sanderson would have an impact on the negotiations with Dahlin or Power. We started conversations earlier in the offseason with those two guys, and we continued all through summer. we continue to talk now, and they've been really positive, so it's something that we're still going to work on over the next couple of weeks. And so right away you could see, all right, well, there's the safety blanket. There's the parachute here, because you can't go out there and immediately say, okay, well, because Sanderson got this, Dahlin now doesn't want to do the contract they had agreed on. If they were already negotiating from before, then how exactly has the deal not been announced yet? What happened? Well, this is also what the article says. The rumors have been persistent that the Sabres are looking to lock up Dahlin to a max contract extension at $10 million per season. But according to former Sabre Andrew Peters, host of WGR 550's The Instigator Show, Dahlin's representatives want a shorter-term 5-year deal, and the Sabres are holding firm for an 8-year deal. In spite of the fact that the deal would make the 23-year-old one of the top-paid defensemen in the NHL, the contractual landscape appears to have changed for top-end players after the deal Auston Matthews had signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, the Maple Leafs and Matthews kind of changed the game for all of these good players in the NHL, and here's why. Normally, NHL players wanted that security. When they're coming off of their ELC, they maybe sign a bridge deal, maybe they get a few more years before they really break out, and once they're a star, that's when they get that security. Okay, I'm a big name, I'm talented, I'm good, I'm gonna get that 8-year deal, lock myself in, and I'm gonna secure my future, my family, my entire son's life, my daughter's life, my wife's life. I'm gonna be able to provide for everybody because I got an 8-year deal at $50+ million. And if you wanted to do the math there, hey, $50 million over 8 years, that's like a $6.25 million AAV. That's not that big, right? But $50 million is still $50 million. Players in the past have wanted that security. But Auston Matthews said, okay, screw that. Screw the 8 years. I know I'm talented. I know I'm going to be talented. I was talented on my ELC. I had 40 goals in my first NHL year. I have the right to sign shorter-term contracts at 4-5 years long-ish with huge AAV amounts attached to it. Not because I don't want security, but because I know that I'm going to be good enough to try to maximize my value over the course of my career. 8-year deals were always beneficial for both sides because the player would get the security and the team would get the services of the player for a cheaper cap hit than what he's normally worth. Like, that was sort of the trend in the late 2000s, mid-2010s-ish, where better players would sign cheaper AAV deals, but just at 8 years long, which is why they would justifiably get those deals. You'd be getting a star player at a cheaper cap hit because you would be committing the years to him. But Auston Matthews changed the game, saying that if you're good enough, this is a viable route. You can get shorter-term deals where you're actually maximizing your value, because every few years, every 4 or 5 years, you're going to have to re-sign again. You're still going to be one of the top players, and as a result, your AAV is going to reflect that, and it's going to change contract by contract. Whereas if you get the 8-year deal with a discount attached to it, sure, you could guarantee yourself that money, but if you're a top-of-the-line player like Auston Matthews is, hey, you were already getting $50-something million in your first contract after the ELC. You're getting another 50 in the next. At the end of the day, hockey is a business, and these players have to make money. They make a lot of money, of course, but some of these guys want to maximize whatever it is they're able to get, and Auston Matthews paved the way for star players to say, yeah, here's an avenue to do that. Sign shorter-term deals. And for Rasmus Dahlin, he is one of the best defensemen in the NHL already, so hearing that he kind of wants to go that route too, it makes things a lot more intriguing when you acknowledge how this is the aftermath, this is the shrapnel of the Auston Matthews contract style. And it works out too. I mean, we had talked about, even though Matthews is going to be the most paid player in the NHL once his extension kicks in, there still is benefit to what the Leafs' timeline is and how that aligns with Auston Matthews and his timeline as well. There are other conversations to have about that, but for now, this has affected the Buffalo Sabres to the point where they want the 8-year deal, they want that long-term commitment. Dahlin wants the shorter-term contract. Dahlin wants to be able to maximize his dollar amount after really breaking out the past few years and cementing himself at the top of the pyramid. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this Dahlin holdup? How do you feel about this deadlocked situation between Dahlin and the Sabres? How much do you think he's going to get in his next contract? I'm not going to ask how much he should get because he could realistically get like $10+ million, and I think it's justified because he's that good. But what do you think the contract amount comes to? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99 and bye.